And I'm Jessica.
And welcome to Nomads,
a podcast about international teaching, travel, and life.
We met in our undergrad music program in Minnesota and now are both international music teachers.
I just came from teaching in Kazakhstan and now I'm teaching for a school in Panama.
And I just came from Turkmenistan and am now going to teach for a school in China.
And just like the past however many weeks, we are still stuck at home in Minnesota right now.
Yes, if you haven't yet, please don't forget to check out our Instagram and follow us. It's at Nomads Podcast. Some of the pictures of places that we talked about last week, you will be able to see there.
Yeah, and if you are listening on YouTube, we would appreciate it if you would subscribe to our channel and turn on the notifications so you get alerted when we upload.
Yes, so last week we talked about our top 5 favorite things from each of the cities that we just came from.
And this week we're lucky because we have another super special guest to talk to us about Tefl certification. So welcome, Leah.
Hi.
Good job. So why don't you just introduce yourself, like say where you're from, where you are, what you do now.
Okay. Well, my name is Leah. I graduated university with a degree in special education, but I didn't want to teach in Minnesota, where I'm from. So I graduated in May and told my parents, I figured out what I'm doing with my life and I'm moving to Thailand. So I've been in Thailand since October of 2017. Went and visited home for a little bit, but never actually worked at home since then. Just been teaching in Thailand. I'm in Phuket. So originally I came to Phuket to do my Tefl certification, which is a 4-week course. And then I was going to backpack for 6 months and go home and then start teaching. But I got to Phuket and I did my Tefl certification and I backpacked for about 5.5 months. And then I came back to Phuket and signed a 16-month contract with a school and just called my parents and said I'm not coming home. So that's where I'm at.
That sounds like an amazing conversation, but I'm not jealous of you for having that.
Right.
I had to tell my parents that I might not come home for Christmas last year, and I even ended up coming back anyway, and that was a hard conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I did go back to visit my parents at the end of the school year last year, but I didn't tell any of my family I was going home. So I had my best friend pick me up from the airport and then I went to my parents' house and I just rang the doorbell. And my mom was like, "This is the best thing since sliced bread," pretty much.
Oh my gosh. I can't imagine doing
That's awesome. Okay, well, I guess for anyone listening who doesn't know what it is, do you want to just explain what Tefl is and why someone would get the certification?
Yeah, so Tefl it's a branch of a thing called a CERTA. So it stands for Teaching English as a Foreign Language, or there's a TESOL, which is Teaching English as a Second Oral Language. But TEFL and TESOL and CERTA, they're all kind of the same thing. It's basically, the course that I took is 4 weeks long, and it's a super intensive course. So you learn everything about English grammar, phonics, have to take grammar and phonics tests. They give you the materials and all of the resources you would need to learn how to teach people by engaging them, and instead of just talking at somebody, starting conversation kind of things, because that's pretty much the best way to learn a second language. So for this TEFL program, I did it in class, but they also have online classes too. I've done a TEFL online as well. And yeah, it's like 4 weeks of some TEFL training courses are like 6 weeks long, or they'll do like half online, half in class or something, but they're all over the world. And at least in Thailand, schools kind of require a TEFL certification and a bachelor's degree. Yeah, so if you, like, there are schools that will hire you, but you'll get higher pay if you have a bachelor's degree. And a TEFL certification, they just want it because they know then, like, you've studied English grammar. Because pretty much in 4 weeks, you learn all of the grammar and phonics that you've ever learned in, like, elementary school in 4 weeks.
That's cool.
So, yeah, it turns out
I
to be a lot
have another
different.
question too. Like, when you say like bachelor's degree, do you mean like they want you to have another education degree, or does it not really matter if you have the certification?
No, so pretty much they just want you to have a bachelor's degree because that's one of the documents that you need for your working permit. But it doesn't matter what the bachelor's degree is in. Like, you could have a bachelor's degree in basket weaving, and nobody would really care. Like, there's people that have like bachelor's degrees in civil engineering, and they come here and now they're teaching like 5th grade science and math and English. So yeah, it doesn't matter what your degree is in, but most schools, like, unless they pay a bribe or like figure something out to get a work permit without a bachelor's degree, most of the time, yeah, you need one. There's people that make fake ones and they get away with it, but if you get caught, like, it's kind of sticky. So
I know a story of someone who had to get a fake marriage license. I think they were married, but they needed it like from another, or they needed it like in a short amount of time, and they didn't have enough time to order it from their country, and it was for like recertification or something. So they just went to like a backdoor market, and they had this marriage license made, and no one ever found out, and it totally worked.
Wow.
But we do not condone that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, not to say you should do that, because you shouldn't.
Right.
No, I mean, you really shouldn't, because if you do get caught, then like you pretty much have to leave the country like that night.
Oh my God.
If the school or your employer finds out, you just leave that night.
Wow.
But yeah, not a common thing.
Yeah.
But possible.
So we have a couple people listening that have already talked to me, and they're really considering getting a TEFL. So could you just give a couple more details? Like, you already said the length of time, but like the cost, or like you said there were different lengths of time and stuff. So do you think like different ones are better than others?
Yeah, so definitely if you're gonna do a TEFL, do it in class. Like, it's an experience, because you can get a TEFL from anywhere in the world. Like, you can get it from like all over Thailand, you can go to Indonesia, you can go to China, you can go to Argentina if you wanted to, I'm sure. But most are between like 3 and 6 weeks. The one that I took in Phuket, they've actually just expanded to be up in Chiang Mai. My course fees were about $1,450 for a 4-week course, but they do discounts where, like, if you sign up with a friend, like 2 people register at the same time, they'd give you a $350 discount.
Cool.
And that course fee includes all of the lectures, which you're in class from like the first week you're in class from 8 to about 4, so it's kind of a long day, but then every week after that you're there from about 8 or 9 to noon, and then you teach 6 different classes that they kind of the first class they give you like everything that you would possibly need to teach a class, all of your engage activities, and literally they give you like a script pretty much of how to teach your first class. And then by the 6th class, you're making those materials, finding those materials. So they really do a good job of in class courses do a really good job at kind of like holding your hand, but then letting go to teach you how to teach, kind of thing. Because not everybody can teach. I'm sure people can realize that pretty easily.
Yeah.
So yeah, my course was $1,400, but that included the lectures, included all of the books. It also included like coffee and snacks and accommodation. So
Nice.
the place
Okay.
they gave me like 2 choices for accommodation, and I just picked one, and actually I ended up staying there for I actually just moved out of it about 3 weeks ago, so I was there for quite some time because I just really loved it there. And then they give you job support like before, during, and after the course as well. They make sure that before you arrive in Thailand, you have all of the documents you might need from whatever country you're from, so that you don't have to struggle with like, oh, well, I can only get this document if I'm at like back in the States or something like that. Like, they make sure you have everything before you get there. And even I took my course October 2017, and I even like emailed my course director, who's also from Minnesota, believe it or not. He's from Bloomington, and I was like, oh, what's up? But he like still, even a few months ago when I emailed him, he was like, these are my resources. This is like, I'll give you the names of the people you need to send your CV to. And they really do stay true to the whole job support before, during, and after the course. They also do a job support class. So they'll bring in teachers that have taken the course before, and they'll just kind of stand there in the front of the class for like a Q&A. So you can ask whatever questions. They'll give you advice on what schools like to look out for, what schools are red flags, what are good schools, and things like that, so you don't get yourself in a really messy, like bad situation that makes you want to leave Thailand or anything. And then they also help you make your CV. So like a CV is like a resume, I'm sure people know, but a CV is more tailored to like what you're looking for, like what job you're looking for. So even if you've only ever worked at like McDonald's in your whole life, they will show you how to make your CV look like you've been a teacher before, and that you have the qualities to be a teacher, so that you're more marketable to schools in Phuket or all over Thailand or China or Singapore, wherever that may be. Kind of just hold for a second. But.
Yeah, it sounds like you got a lot of support, like possibly more than I got for like teaching and stuff. I mean, you're there for like 4 years, but like the specific stuff about finding a job and like telling you what to look for in a job, that is really valuable, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And it's nice as well, because I mean, not every school is going to be a good school. And I definitely experienced that. Like, I'm not one of those people to ask for help. So I didn't really want to email my Tefl instructor and be like, hey, I'm like back in Phuket after backpacking for 5.5 months. Like, where should I get a job at? You know, I just kind of like applied at one school, and that one school was like, you're hired on the spot. And I was like, perfect. And I was like, yes, I got a job. This is great. And a few weeks later, I ran into my Tefl instructor at a bar, and he was like, oh, so where are you working now? And I told him the school, and he was like, oh, good luck.
Oh,
Just
no.
good luck.
Oh,
Like, I'm gonna
no.
let you experience it for yourself. And honestly, after working at that school, I was like, I want to go home. I never want to work in Thailand ever again. But then I got into a new school, and I love my school. I've been there ever since. So,
Okay.
I mean, that's a plus. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's definitely like being from Minnesota, you're always kind of afraid to ask for help. You know, you can always do it by yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's definitely one of those things you need to take advantage of, especially in Tefl when you're in a foreign country looking for a job.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well, yeah, or even just like in general, like for me too, in like the international community, like ask your like admin or whoever else for help.
mhm. Yeah, but I have like I took my course in Phuket, but I've heard that the Chiang Mai course is really good as well. And then there's a course called Tefl Haven, which is they have like many Tefl like sites around the world, but there's one in Koh Phangan. So for 4 weeks, you literally get to live on an island in Thailand, like surrounded by beautiful Thai beaches and stuff for
Nice.
4 weeks while you're studying. And I've heard that one's a pretty great one as well.
I know you like kind of talked about this a little bit, but do you want to like explain kind of like how once you got back, like how you found, I mean, even the first job, but then like your second job and what that was like?
Yeah, so I found the second job while I was on a 1 week break from my first school. um, in because I can only really speak about like Thailand. I know a little bit about Vietnam and things, but at least in Thailand, it's all about showing face. So you can, like, I've experienced this as well, as you can send in your CV by email and online to their website, or to the school's website, and you can send in your CV, you know, every day for a month, and they don't really care that much about it, especially if they're not looking for teachers like actively. They all just kind of care about like they want to see your face. They want to make sure that you're in Phuket already. They want to see like your body language, because then they can kind of gauge if you're going to be good for like a Thai culture type class. Because I mean, all of my kids are Thai, and because obviously I'm teaching them English, but um, they want to make sure that like you are who you say you are, kind of thing. Especially during interviews, they want them to be in person. So, finding a job in Thailand, I just hopped on my motorbike because I bought myself a motorbike. I hopped on my motorbike and I drove. I drove. um, from school to school to school to school, just walking up to the school, going into the front office and asking for HR. And then if they were like, oh, HR is too busy or something, then I'd be like, okay, I just want to hand in my CV. Similar to like how you'd find a job in the States before all of this like online, you know, stuff. You just walk up and you hand them your resume or your CV, and you're like, I'm looking for a job, and they're like, hey, we'll call you, kind of thing. In Thailand, it's pretty similar to that, where they'll say we'll call you or we'll email you or something, and you always like have to get somebody to follow up. But yeah, that's how I kind of went from my first job to my second job. I had a week off from my first job, and I was like, I need to find a new job. So I went to a really good private school here in Phuket. And now, like, I just handed in my CV and they interviewed me on the spot, and they were like, oh, yeah, that's cool. Can you start on Monday? I was like,
Wow.
I still work at another school. So, you know, gotta give me a little bit of time, because then you get into the visa stuff that gets pretty sticky sometimes too. But yeah, it's pretty, I mean, it's easy to go from school to school to school. It's just unfortunate when you have to get a new visa every time, because that gets pretty expensive as well. So
Okay, well, that is a lot of information. I think that will really help the people that are thinking about, even getting the certification.
Mhm.
yeah.
Do you talk a little bit about what your work day is like and what you could expect from that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I also, sorry, like along with that, I guess like the type of school you work at and like what specifically your job is.
Yeah, so I every school day is about the same. It's usually about 7:45 to 4:30. I work 7:45 to 4:50, um, Monday through Friday. Um, so I get to school 7:45, and then class doesn't actually start until 8:20. But every morning you sing the Thai national anthem and you do a Buddhist prayer, and then classes start. So right now I'm at a private school. There's government schools and then private schools and international schools. But in private schools, they have different programs. So they have like an English program, EP, or ESC, which is what I work in right now. It's English as a second curriculum. So my students learn 50% Thai, 50%, or sorry, yeah, 50% Thai, 50% English. In an EP program, they learn about 70% English, 30% Thai. So you get a lot of like the expat parents, like people from Russia and around the world that come and they're like, we got to put our kids in school. And they don't want to pay for international schools because they're quite expensive. So they send them to private schools and English programs. Um, so in my ESC program, I teach science 1 time a week, math 2 times a week, and then I teach 7 English classes. And then on top of that, I've been assigned to teach ESL for grade 4 and grade 6. So I pretty much just help them with their spelling words because we have weekly spelling tests, help them work through their grammar books, and kind of just practice general speaking to get them more confident in speaking English. Um, so the class load, like every day, really differs. Like on Mondays, I have 4 classes plus extra English, but on Wednesdays, I only have 1 class plus extra English. So it just differs upon the day. Um, but for extra English it's compulsory, but it's like the parents pay extra for their kids to stay after school for just an hour of extra English. But it doesn't necessarily need to be English. Like if we're learning long division or something in math, then I can work on that. Or if we're learning something in science that they don't quite understand, I can work on that. It's just kind of more of an English language rather than like a let's learn more grammar kind of thing. Yeah, and then the kids have break 2 times a day, and then lunch, obviously. But my school is nice because they provide lunch for me. Thai food, which Thai
Mm.
food is the best food. So Thai food is the best food, and it's just authentic Thai food every day for lunch. You're more than welcome to like leave and go get lunch, or if you have a big gap in classes and you're like, I want to go to 7-Eleven or Family Mart or just a coffee shop and grab a coffee and hang out and not sit in my classroom for a while, like that's pretty great. Um, yeah, but it's pretty easy because we have grammar books and we have phonics books and spelling books and things. So the actual like making of materials, I don't really have to do by myself, um, because I already have all of the materials. We obviously have deadlines that we have to meet and like be on a certain page of a certain book. They give us like a whole course outline and like a weekly scheme. So we kind of know like what we need to teach when. And it's nice at my school, they don't tell you how to teach it, they just tell you what you need to teach.
Mm.
And as long as you teach that, you're good.
Nice. We
Yeah.
kind of have something similar. We have a curriculum, at least at the company that I'm at,
Well, yeah,
where
where I was.
they
Mhm.
just they tell you the outcomes and then you kind of work backwards. So they're like, teach the kids ukulele, but you can teach basically whatever songs you want, just something easy.
Yeah, just as long as you teach them the ukulele.
Yeah, it's
That's all that matters.
fine.
Yeah, my kids also have like swimming class. They have PE so they call it sport. So they have sport class once a week, swimming once a week, and they also have like computer. My school just implemented this digital education or digital learning or something where they actually get to go to computer class and learn how to code and how to like make circuits on the computer and
Cool.
things like that. So if kids ever want to become like a video game designer or something,
Mhm.
they can do that. I know in high school, like they call it Matium. In Matium, at the end of their Matium like DE classes, they actually have made their own like phone app or their own video game or something,
Cool.
just to help kids like
Wow.
explore more of what they want to do to kind of encourage them to go to university,
Mhm.
because not a lot of Thai people, especially Thai people that go to government schools, go to university just because they're like, I don't really need to, or they don't really want to, or they can't afford it, or something like that. So yeah, it's kind of an all around. The kids are busy, busy, busy all the time. They don't really get a lot of rest, but that's kind of like not even just Thai, but that's kind of like an Asian culture, is the kids
Mhm.
are always learning. On Saturdays, they go to extra Thai lessons. Sometimes on Sundays, they go to extra Thai lessons. Some parents, like I have one of my students that goes from school from 7:45 to she has extra English at the end of the day, so she's in school until 4:50, and then after that she has extra Thai until 6 p.m., and then after that she goes to music class and learns how to play the piano, and that's until 7, and then she has another teacher come and help her with extra English until 9 p.m., and then she wakes up the next morning and does the whole
Oh
thing
Oh
over.
my
my
goodness.
And she's 8, so you can imagine, like,
Yeah.
No.
it gets to be a really long day for these kids, but that's kind of where, because Thai teachers are very strict. Like I think Asian culture in general is just very strict on education, and so it's kind of nice being like the foreign teacher that like the kids are like, I can only understand like a third of what you're saying, but you're like teaching me by playing games and by watching movies and watching videos and stuff, like, and it's kind of like you use it as a reward as well. Like my kids really love Mr. Bean, so like I'm like, okay, if we finish early, which doesn't really happen that often because English grammar, writing sentences,
Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of a lot, but I'm like, if we finish early, we can watch Mr. Bean, and they all work so fast when I tell them that. So
Aw.
quite nice, quite nice.
I mean, I think we're gonna like dive more into like just life in like Thailand, I guess. Yeah,
Okay.
Laura?
Yeah. I want to know like if we have similar like lifestyles with travel and whatnot.
Right.
Maybe first we could do like how do you meet friends there? We just talked about this for where we were, but it might be different. And then like have you found any like issues with like language barrier, either like I guess with teaching or like just life?
Um. Yeah, and I guess that'll happen anywhere you go, is the language barrier thing. But um, so in terms of like how you make friends is well, how I made friends pretty much is I make friends with my colleagues, with the other foreign teachers, and then after work we go to dinner or something, or somebody's like, oh, it's my birthday this weekend or something. So you go there, and then you just kind of like network. You meet one person, and then you meet another person. You meet another person. I actually met a girl that's from Litchfield, Minnesota, all places, and now she's one of my best friends. Or there's a guy that I met through my the second school that I worked at. Like I just started talking to him, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I'm from Minnesota." I was like, "No, you're not." He was like, "Yeah, I'm from Maple Grove." I was like, of all places, like to work in the same school, but yeah, it's just kind of like a networking thing. There also is some Facebook groups if you're like a major extrovert, which I am not really, but there's Facebook groups that are like expats of Phuket or something like that, and they'll do meetups like a clean the beach boot camp or something. So you'll go do like a 45-minute workout and then clean the beach, and you kind of just like go up to somebody and be like, "Hey, I'm Leah, let's clean the beach together." And then you get talking, and then you're like, "Oh, hey, now we can, maybe if I see you out at, a bar or something, or maybe we can get dinner sometime or something." And you just kind of develop the friendship that way. It's actually very, very easy to make friends, especially with foreign teachers, because pretty much, in my opinion, everybody that goes to teach abroad kind of is in a similar mindset where on school breaks, you're going to go traveling somewhere. You're here, kind of by yourself. And, you kind of need to make a home away from home kind of situation. So everybody's kind of in that same, like, I want to do this kind of thing. So that makes making friends easier too, because everybody's like, well, you need to make friends, I need to make friends. So, works out that
Right.
way. And it's really interesting to meet people from around the world, because then you get like the culture shock from not even being in the country, but you learn so much new lingo. Like half of my friends are from South Africa, and I just like, oh, that's laka. Like, I don't know what that means, but I just know how to use it. So I'm like, okay, this is cool, So yeah, in terms of making friends, it's super easy because everybody, well, if you're not like a hermit that just goes to school and then puts themselves in their room after school and doesn't go out ever, then it is pretty easy to make friends, honestly. And I think every weekend I'm making a new friend. Like even just yesterday, I went out to a restaurant, and I made like 4 new friends. And I was like, oh, I didn't expect this, but it's like, cool, that's awesome. Um, in terms of language barrier, so this is going to be a thing anywhere in the world. But language barrier in Phuket or in Thailand in general, if you're not in like rural Thailand, where they're like, oh my gosh, you're a foreigner, like, where are you from, kind of thing. Like, we've never seen one before. But if you're in like Bangkok, Chiang Mai, Udon like kind of a bigger city, Phuket, or like an island or something, most people can speak very basic English. Or I do a lot of pointing, especially at pictures, to be like, on menus. You just do a lot of pointing. You can use your phone and Google Translate a lot, but I've never, that I can recall, I've never like ran into a situation where the language barrier has negatively impacted something. At least I can't think of anything off the top of my head right now. But
like you communicated something negative by accident or something? Is that
yeah,
what you mean? Yeah.
yeah, because I think being culturally sensitive is always a thing that people need to practice, especially when traveling abroad.
Yeah.
But and being culturally aware. So if like if a Thai person's not going to do it, like you probably shouldn't do it either. But yeah, I don't think Thai people are really easy to get along with because they don't really want to lose face. They don't really want to cause problems at all. So like they'll tell you like, oh, don't do that, and then you just never do it again, and it makes it easy. So
Nice.
yeah, they're pretty okay, but there are some things. Oh, okay, so this didn't happen to me, but I have a friend that was playing soccer, like playing football on a team at the one of the international schools here in Phuket, and they were playing against a team of Thai people, and the guy, like the Thai guy, tripped over the ball, and like my friend went to go kick it, and he pushed his head, like touched his head and like pushed him away, which that ended the game. Like that just kind of put a sour taste in everybody's mouth, because in Thailand, like the head is like the most sacred part of the body. You don't touch anybody's heads. I don't even touch my students' heads. Like it's always like on the shoulder or something like that. But you don't touch Thai people's heads. And for him to push his head, like that was something that he was like, I really didn't know. It was just kind of like I need to get the ball kind of thing, not purposeful, like in meaning to hurt anybody. But just the fact that he did it, and then he was like, oh my gosh, I didn't actually know that was a thing.
Yeah.
So that's like one example of like something that happened that I guess wasn't very positive, but it was never really communicated, I guess, so it's not really a language barrier. But
Yeah.
there's a lot of times though, like with food, that's like the biggest thing. You'll be like, you'll want like because water is namplau, but namplau, if you say it wrong, means coconut. So you could be asking for a bottle of water and they'll just bring you over a coconut, and it's like I just want a coconut, I just want a bottle of water, but I'll drink the coconut too, it's okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't come across a lot of stuff like that with the language either. Like there's some cultural stuff, but luckily I think if you're like just generally a sensitive, cautious person, you'll probably hear about it or find out about what not to do before you do it, hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I've found like people are like pretty understanding. Like if you have good intentions and you like make a mistake, they'll like explain it to you, but obviously once you find out those things, like don't mess with it.
Yeah.
And I guess like it's always nice to, like, wherever you're traveling, whatever country you're going to, at least like take it upon yourself to learn like even one word in the language, like even just learn hello, because then it's going to change the way that that person from that country like looks at you. So even if you come to Thailand, if you're like Sawadee ka or Sawadee Cup or whatever, if you say that rather than just hello, like they're automatically gonna be like, oh, okay, it's probably a nice person, But I think, I mean, I guess this is just what I do, is like I always try to learn how to say like hello, thank you, and where's the bathroom. So
Yep.
it's like to be knowledgeable about it, because if they see that you're making an effort, or if they see that you're not just kind of one of those typical tourists that's like, the locals of this place are going to wait on me hand and foot because I have money and I'm a tourist, then they're going to treat you a lot better than, one of those people that just comes and is like, I have so much money, like, why are you not washing my feet, kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, that kind of goes into our next question. I was just curious, like, what your breaks are like, where you're able to travel, if you stay in Thailand or close by, or if you've like tried to do or wanted to do any bigger trips that are further out.
Yeah, so COVID.
Yeah.
So right now, because nobody is allowed, you're allowed out of Thailand, but not back in.
Right.
So as of right now, because of COVID, I actually had a trip to India and Nepal and Sri Lanka planned for we get, like at my school anyway, we get 3 weeks holiday in April and 3 weeks holiday in October. So I was going to use my April holiday and go there. But then COVID happened.
Yeah.
So I didn't go on my trip. It all just kind of depends. Like if I have a 4-day weekend, I will definitely hop on a boat and go to a different island. I live on an island right now, but I'll go to like a different island that's a little bit smaller or a little bit more chill, just kind of a different vibe, a different, a different part of Thailand to look at. I have traveled like the mainland Thailand, like Chiang Mai and Bangkok and all that stuff. But then even last year in April, I went and visited some friends in South Africa for a month, just because I had a month off of school, or like, about 3.5 weeks off of school. And I was like, I just want to, go see some friends that I had met in Phuket that moved back to South Africa. So I just kind of I bought a plane ticket like 2 days before I was going to leave, and hopped on a plane and went to South Africa for 3 weeks. And when I was there, I didn't ever have to pay for accommodation or anything, because I had made so many friends from Phuket that moved back to South Africa that I could just stay with them. And it was really nice to be able to connect and get like a local view of South Africa, rather than like have to pay for tours or anything, and kind of know like what to do, where to go. I went to Qatar, like Doha.
Nice.
That place, I don't know if I'd ever go back to Doha, but there's just really not a lot. I've been to Singapore like 4 times, and Singapore is like one of my favorite countries actually. So when I'm flying anywhere, I book like a one-way ticket to Singapore, and then I book my round trip ticket out of Singapore.
Nice.
Generally it's cheaper, and then it gives me time to go to like Gardens by the Bay or Marina Bay Sands or something, and just kind of chill before I have to take a long flight anywhere. But I've stuck around Thailand. Like I've done Laos, Vietnam, Hong Kong. My next trip, I would like to do Cambodia, but that just depends on COVID, of course. So now we're able to travel within Thailand. We just can't leave Thailand. So when I have another, long weekend, or even just a weekend, I'll probably hop on a plane and go somewhere. But I just kind of have a travel bug, so I kind of go wherever I want to go, and I like people go everywhere. So like we'll go back to school after a long holiday, and you're like, oh, where'd you go, what'd you do? And they'd be like, I went to Cambodia, or I went to Myanmar or something, and this was my experience. And then I'm like, that's cool, I want to go there. And then I just put it on my list of places I want to go, so that I can check them off, get the stamps in the passport.
Nice.
Experience cultures. That's my big thing, is I just like to experience all the cultures of different places. So I have stuck around Thailand, like the surrounding countries, quite a bit, just because I haven't had I haven't had the time, like off of school, to be able to take a big trip like I did to South Africa or something. But I think I'd like to do Cambodia for just a long weekend, and then when like the opportunity arises and maybe COVID calms down a little bit, go to Europe and go to London, because I haven't been to London yet. And I'd also like to go to Korea and Japan. So those are definitely in the mind as well. I just, have to wait. But it's definitely a thing here, is like if you have 2 weeks off of school or something, no teacher is going to stay in Phuket, because we can explore Phuket on the weekends. But when you have longer time, it's like, what other part of Thailand or what other country do you want to go see, kind of thing. So like, and I find it easier to travel from Thailand than I did from Minnesota. I think it's just because Minnesota is like smack dab in the middle of land.
Yep.
Always have to pay a lot to like get a connecting flight from like Chicago or LAX or something. Whereas Thailand, I find it easier to just like get on a plane and leave the country, you know, like you don't really have a lot of connections. If anything, you have a connection in Bangkok, I guess. But yeah, I find it a lot easier to travel outside of Thailand. And I don't know if it's because of the like ease of like flights and leaving the country, or if it's just because I'm on a new side of the world or what. But yeah, I think I travel a lot more now that I've moved to Thailand than I think I did when I was in Minnesota, I suppose.
Yeah. It sounds like you've been able to travel a lot, like possibly, I don't know, there's some people at my school in Turkmenistan, and that's a unique situation because there's just not a lot of flights out there. Like you're guaranteed to have a connection either through Istanbul or Dubai. But a lot of people would have, but they would stay in country for one break, like either fall break or spring break, and then they would do a bigger trip for spring break. But I'm in the boat of like, if I have a break, I want to go somewhere. I definitely don't want to stick around the place where I live because I could go pretty much anywhere on a weekend or a 3-day weekend.
Yes, I agree with that. And I think it's just kind of one of those like I want to get out and explore the world. So there are people that I'm sure there's people that are like, I'm gonna stay in Thailand, or do like similar to the people at your school, stay in Thailand for one break and then leave for the next. But I'm sure there's people that do that just because sometimes doing big trips gets quite expensive.
Yeah.
Especially when you're making Thai baht, and Thai baht isn't really strong anywhere that you go. But yeah, I guess like some people do that, and I think that's actually what I've done too. Is like one of my trips, I just went to Vietnam, and then for the next school break, I went to South Africa because it's a lot farther away. Definitely don't stop traveling. Especially when you're working abroad, you don't stop traveling, especially because you meet so many cool people, and then you're like, let's take a trip together, and then you become best friends, and well, maybe not best friends, but like you take a trip together, and then you're like, oh my gosh, like we're like similar travel style people, so let's just keep taking trips together. And then you never, like, you can be a solo traveler, but and like you can still do your own thing, but then you're not actually traveling solo. You do your own thing, you just have somebody with you that's doing it with you.
And that's probably why most of us decided to do this anyways, to travel. So if you're not taking a lot of those opportunities, then it doesn't really make sense.
Right. Yeah.
What's the point of having a passport if it's just going to be empty?
Correct.
Do you like tips or advice for people wanting to get the Tefl certification, or just like teach overseas in general?
Yeah, I guess when I was looking at Tefl certifications, I thought it was a scam. Like I thought that a lot of places that I looked up were scams just because I was like, it just sounds too good to be true. But you have to think, like, it might sound like a scam because they're like, come to this island and take a 4-week course. And it's like, why would I go to a strange island in the middle of the ocean that I don't know anybody? But honestly, you just have to like go and experience it, because if you don't like it, you can always leave. Nobody's keeping you there, so even if it looks too good to be true, it's probably just because you're like, oh my gosh, this sounds amazing, like I need to do this. So you just kind of got to do it. You just got to go for it. Also, like Tefl, I'm not gonna sit here and say that it's a piece of cake, because it's not. It's pretty much like a summer course that you take in college. Like instead of being online, it's just in person. So it is a very intense course, and you are going to need to like know what's happening. You're going to need to have to study and kind of not just like write it off as like I'm studying TEFL in this foreign country and I can go explore and whatever, because there are tests that you'll have to take, like a grammar and a phonics test. And yeah, it's not easy, but it's definitely worth it. I also think like you need to, I encourage everybody to just get out and explore the world. Even if you go to a country and take a 4-week TEFL course and you decide, nope, I don't want to do this, and go back home, at least you dipped your toes in. You don't have to jump in and be like, oh, I'm going backpacking for a whole year or 6 months or something and doing this TEFL course all at once. Like I think the TEFL course kind of gives people kind of the feel of, okay, do I actually want to travel away from home for long periods of time? Do I just want to do this 4 weeks and maybe travel for like a week after that and then go back? So it's definitely, because everybody's different when it comes to traveling. Obviously, some people are a lot more homebodied than other people. So yeah, definitely, like if it looks too good to be true, it's not. The price, yeah, is a little steep for some people. Like, it's just like somebody asking you to fly to Thailand for $1,400 just to take a 4-week course, which does not include like the food and like extra traveling that you do outside of the course, or airfare. So you do have to like pay for the flight and pay to eat every day. But I mean, I give myself $3 a day, and I think I only spend $1 a day on food, and I eat quite a lot. So yeah, so I think you just kind of gotta go for it and take it seriously. Not too serious, but take it seriously, in the fact that like you are going to need to pass the course. Otherwise, you just kind of wasted your own time, I guess. And don't say, oh, I did it and now I'm done, kind of thing. Like make it your own experience, because everybody's going to have a different experience. Make it your own experience, though, because that's really important. Make sure you communicate with, like, if you do a TEFL program in person, because there are online ones that you can do from anywhere in the world, but if you do an in-person one, make sure that you communicate what documents you might need, like for a work permit in whatever country that is that you go to, because like for example in Thailand you need a police clearance from your home country, from your home state. So that's something like, okay, I need to get a police clearance and bring it with me to Thailand, and boom, one less thing that I have to worry about, kind of things. Because if you go to this country and do the in-person training and you like the country and you want to stay there, then you're going to need documents. So it's good to just have them with you anyway,
Right.
just for convenience sake, I guess, just in case you go do this TEFL course and you're like, oh, I don't want to stay in Thailand, maybe I want to go to Vietnam or something, and Vietnam you're like, oh my gosh, I absolutely love this place, I want to stay here, then at least you don't have to worry about getting documents from back home or anything like that. So but yeah, because visas are a big thing.
Yeah.
You don't want to overstay your visa. You don't want to overstay your visa. Definitely look up, like, from the U.S. it's pretty convenient, because you can go pretty much anywhere in the world without a visa. You can just get a visa on arrival, like the stamp that you get at immigration when you arrive in the country. But with other countries, like, that's not always the case. Maybe you have to get a tourist visa or something. So definitely look up the visa requirements before you go anywhere as well.
Yeah.
And don't let money stop you. That's what I hear. A lot of people are like, oh, Leah, I'm so jealous you're doing this. And it's like, well, you don't have to be jealous. Like, you can do it too.
Yeah.
It's not like I was like, oh, I'm the only one that can do that. No, like anybody can go travel abroad, teach, but they're like, oh, I can't afford it. And it's like, when I came to Thailand, I had $600 in my bank account. to last me a month.
Yeah.
Like, and then I started teaching online. Before, like while I was backpacking, I taught online so that I could make some income, and that's how I traveled, was by teaching online. So you can't really say, oh, I don't have enough money or I can't afford it or anything, because like money's just an object kind of thing. Like it is what you make it kind of thing. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, that's good. I think a lot of people have just like different priorities. Sometimes they say they wish they could do that and like they don't actually want to do the work. But if
Right.
you like explain like, okay, it's not that hard if you actually are serious about it. You just have to
Yeah.
make some priorities, maybe make some changes in your lifestyle, but it's totally possible.
Yeah, 'cause it's not like, you know, picking up your entire life and moving to a new country. That's not easy.
Yeah.
You know, especially when you have like a car or a lease an apartment or something like that. It's not easy to just, you know, drop everything and move to a new country. Totally understand that, but it's definitely like nobody's going to be able to just like hold your hand and be like, let's go to Thailand or let's go to Hong Kong or something. Like you definitely have to take initiative if you want to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I heard someone say, you know, when you're like ever thinking about like these hard decisions of whatever, even if it's not traveling abroad or anything, you're only going to do it for the first time once. So even if you like we are moving countries all the time, you know, relatively, and it's still going to be scary, yeah, to go to a new country. But I've already left Minnesota, said my goodbyes, and known absolutely no one in the new country for one time.
Yeah.
So it's not so bad.
Yeah. And once you leave and you meet like one new person, you're like, oh my gosh, I have a new international friend. And that can, depending on the relationship that you make with that friend, like that's a new place you can go travel, you know, and then you meet somebody there and it's a new place to go travel, you know. So I feel like now, because of the relationships that I've built in Thailand, I can travel anywhere in the world, and see somebody that I know. You know, I can go to Ireland, I can go to London, I can go to like Argentina, I can go pretty much anywhere and I'll have a place to stay or know somebody to meet up with for like a coffee and dinner or something. But I wouldn't have known these people unless I left Minnesota one time, which I've left Minnesota more than one time, but like, you know, because Laura and I met abroad anyway, so
Yeah.
kind of, but
Pretty much.
yeah. So it's, yeah, you just kind of gotta go and do it once. You do it once,
Yeah.
you know, just do it once. And once you do it once, then you kind of are like, okay, maybe this is an every once in a while thing, not a full lifestyle.
Yeah.
And there you go. You can even leave, explore a country and be like, oh my gosh, I really love this. Like, I want to keep traveling, and then go home and, you know, sell all your stuff or what have you, and kind of drop your life, I guess.
Yeah.
Right.
Move to another country.
Well, and you
instead
can
of,
always go and go home. Like
Exactly.
even if you signed a contract, even if you whatever, you don't
Yep.
have to stay if you don't like it, but you don't know unless you try it.
Exactly. Like Minnesota's never going anywhere. So
And people here
it's not like, oh, I moved to Thailand, I can't go back to Minnesota, you know, like
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
You always have a lot when you're gone. Probably. Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us and like, you know, spending your time and answering these questions. I know for sure there's at least 2 people who will be really helped by this because I don't know anything about Tefl. I only know my experience.
It was
yeah,
definitely
and I'm more than
interesting.
happy to answer any questions like in the future as well.
Great.
Because I'm definitely an advocate for doing a TEFL program and teaching abroad and all that jazz. So
Yeah, this kind of you segued into like my one of my things. Is there somewhere on social media like Instagram or something that people can find you if they want to learn out more?
Yeah, so I'm not one of those people that has like a fancy travel social media or something, but I'm on Facebook at just Leah Kellogg, or my Instagram is leahbia_94. Yeah, more than happy though for random people to just message me. I'm not weird about that because it happens, you know. But I'm more than happy to answer questions, have calls and everything. Totally.
Cool. We'll put your Instagram in the podcast details when we share this, so if people want to find you. And then next week, Jesica and I are going to give an overview of a trip that we took when we went to Thailand and Cambodia. So for anyone listening, that's something to look forward to.
And then once again, as always, if you have questions or suggestions for us or things you want us to talk about, the best place to let us know is either on our YouTube comments or our Instagram page at Nomads Podcast.
Yes, thanks for listening from wherever in the world you are.
And we'll catch you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Something at the end.